how to be an effective one-person recruiting team. That's next on the RecTech podcast. Hey everyone, it's Chris Russell here from RecTech Media. Hey, so this is Veronika Henderson, recorded from RecruitDC last week. Got her session on tape here. She's a first-time speaker, so glad to give her some exposure here on the podcast. Veronika's great meeting you. And the podcast, as always, is sponsored by our friends at HireTool and RoboRecruiter. Check out roborecruiter.ai for your recruiting chatbot solutions. Hope you enjoy the audio. See you next time.
Great. Well, again, there we go. That's on. Again, I'm proud to sit here and announce our next speaker and the one that you'll be enjoying for roughly the next hour. As someone myself who can relate to actually boots on the ground recruiting and being a one-person recruiting team, I think this is one of the most valuable sessions on the roster today. And I can't think of anyone better to present that than our guest speaker, Veronika Henderson. Just a couple things. Veronika has an MBA. You're currently working, I think, for a small government contractor out of Reston?
It's a National Healthcare Association in Reston, Virginia.
ACR. So Veronika brings an excellent background in tactical, hands-on, boots-on-the-ground recruiting. And I'm sure everybody in this room can probably relate to that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce again, and we're proud to have you here at RecruitDC, Ms. Veronika Henderson. Thank you. A big round of applause.
Thank you. All right, hopefully my microphone is going to be working as well. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining my presentation. I cannot be more excited to spend the next hour with you. A few words, not that Mike was not very descriptive, but I started recruiting about 5.5 years ago, and I started with a tech staffing agency in Arlington, Virginia. Now, as I later found out, I was one of the experimental hires. My manager later told me that both herself and the entire office didn't think that I would survive for longer than a month. Not that it was a very, cutthroat environment, tech agency in itself. They thought that with my thick accent, I wouldn't be able to get people on the phone. I wouldn't be able to be engaging. Not that I got rid of my accent. It's still there. But I embraced it. And at that point, 5.5 years ago, it played a very important role in my life. People actually remembered me. When I called the candidates hiring managers, some of the hiring managers who heard me the second time on the phone, they would say, "Oh, I remember you. You called me a month ago. I clearly remember your accent." So I embraced that, and I moved on. And within the next 8 months, I was the top performing associate recruiter and was promoted to the recruiter role. And in less than 2 years after that, I was promoted to a lead recruiter and was leading the team of 6 other recruiters. Not that only I embraced my difference or my accent, I also did not take no for an answer. So I was making cold calls and I was headhunting candidates, and whenever I heard no, I would always ask why. And it would annoy some people, but ultimately when you genuinely care and you really like the job, it worked out for me. So now I am a talent acquisition business partner or corporate recruiter for the National Healthcare Association in Reston, Virginia. It's a mid-sized company, so approximately 500 employees. And I am the only talent acquisition on the team due to some of the budgeting restrictions that the company has. It's a national association, so it's a nonprofit. So I run the entire talent acquisition desk. So it's starting from developing the job description, working with the hiring manager on approving the job with the executive vice presidents, then posting the job, sourcing, interviewing, negotiating, closing, onboarding, references, background check, recruitment, branding, working with the vendors, as well as running the recruitment dashboard. So going through the data and analytics and numbers, presenting them to our AVPs. What do we need? What do we need to do in terms of recruitment budget and other strategic approach that has to do with recruiting? If you only have one recruiter on the team, what do you do? How do you spend your money that is a limited limited budget. Now, if you guys are a part of a larger organization and you have a team, how my presentation can be relevant, and so the things that I will be talking about, setting expectations with both hiring managers and candidates, and I will be speaking from the perspective of somebody who has been with an absolutely cutthroat tax staffing agency, and at the same time somebody who's now recruiting for one company, as well as I will be talking about some of the numbers that I run and track, and also how, if you have never run any numbers or never tracked anything like that, how do you start? How do you create your Google Analytics account, which is a free tool? And we'll talk about a couple other tools that I use. And then I will talk about some of the recruitment branding initiatives that I run as well. Again, limited budget, so what do I do, what resources I use, and how they help me out. I want to see who is in the audience. Do we have any agency recruiters here? Awesome. How many recruiters do we have? Corporate recruiters that are 1 or 2 people on the team? So the majority. Awesome. Welcome, guys. And then do we have any technical or talent managers? Somebody who is basically building the strategy for the team? Anyone? Awesome. Welcome, guys. Cool. So the next point that I was going to make was that it's hard to find a purple squirrel, and some people do strive to go ahead and spend hours on sourcing. Don't get me wrong, I love sourcing. I think it's very important to be able to source. Actually, in this audience, how many people consider themselves top-notch recruiters that can find a purple squirrel within 48 hours? Bingo. Awesome, so 2 people, everybody else, what are you guys doing? I think sourcing is very important, and I think it's cool that you guys can find a purple squirrel, but when you are working, with my time and the fact that I have to do all of the things aside from just spending time on sourcing, what do you do if you don't have 3 or 4 hours a day to source? What do you do then? So my game is to strategize every single call and every single interaction that I have. So what I strategize is really every communication with the candidate and the hiring manager, and basically what I do is I create a placement. I craft a placement. So maybe in other cases when some of it may just be let go, I cannot let go. I cannot spend more time on, let's say, recruiting for the role. So I craft a placement. And let me talk more about it. So yep, that's me crafting a placement. But the next point that I was going to make is that it starts with the hiring manager. And I cannot stress enough the importance of having the conversation with the hiring manager and setting expectations from the very first conversation. Because when I was working with multiple technical managers, being with the agency, all I heard was that the role was open for 2 or 3 months now, and we couldn't fill it out. Now we're working with the agency. Now we have to spend this much money. Blah blah blah. So it's because the expectations were not set, and then the agency would just go ahead and fill the position within 1 business week. So when you start working with your hiring manager and you're the internal recruiter, set the expectations with the manager. Ask them. They might as well give you a list of 20 different skills that they're looking in the candidate, and you take the skills and then you go and you look for that purple squirrel. But what if you don't have time to do that? Set the expectations and ask. So what are the 3 to 4 must-have skills that the candidate has to have in order to do the job? And then if I find you somebody with these 3-4 skills, like if let's say they have these 3 language or this skill and this language, will they be able to do the job? And usually the answer is whether yes or no. Yes, it is nice to have, it's nice if they live close to the office, so it's nice to have other skills. No, what are the must-haves? Ask it in the very first conversation. Don't wait when you are looking for the candidate for 30 days and the manager is getting frustrated that you cannot find the candidate for them. No, speak about it in the very first conversation. Salary and expectations. Usually companies have the cap. And then if your manager is giving you 90K as the cap to find a senior DevOps engineer, and then recruiters just, take the rack and go, oh my gosh, I have to find a DevOps engineer for 90K, and then you're frustrated. The hiring manager is frustrated because you cannot find somebody who is interested in the role. But if you speak with your hiring manager in the very first conversation and you almost laugh at them and say, you know what, at 90K, I will not be able to find a senior DevOps engineer. Now, it's very possible that your company has that cap that cannot be changed. What can be changed is the perception of the hiring manager, because they're not doing recruiting. They don't know that for 90K they won't be able to find the DevOps engineer. The good recruiter does know, so our job is to communicate it to the hiring manager. If we can't find them what they're looking for, communicate it and tell them, you know what, for 90K, what I can find is somebody with 2 years of experience who has been doing DevOps work and have been working in a cloud environment. I can find you somebody who's really eager to become a mid-level or senior engineer on your team, and that's who I can show. I can show you somebody with 2 years of experience. But at the same time, the manager will not be expecting that you will be sending them resumes of people with 10 years of experience targeting 90K. Talk about it in the very first, first interaction with the hiring manager. Hiring process. So, every company has it set in a different way. You guys know that good candidates, we all work in the same market with same candidates, and good candidates go off the market quickly, especially if they're really good for those technical positions or healthcare, engineering. They go off quickly. Even okay candidates go off the market quickly. Hiring managers don't know it. For some reason they think, oh, if I have an open position, it's our cool company. No, everybody thinks that way. And it's our job to tell the hiring manager that, no, it's not us, it's the candidates' market. And if they are good or even okay candidates, they will be off quickly. So we cannot bring them for 5 different interviews, 2 over the phone and then 2 in person and then one test in the end. So we need to do phone and on-site interview or whatever it has. You guys know your market. Talk about it, how long it would take or how long it should take to interview a person to actually onboard them if they're good, not to miss out. And the timeline with the hiring manager. If you talk about how long it takes your competitors to hire someone like this, and if you tell your manager that if we spend 2 weeks or 3 weeks on interviewing, we may miss out on the candidate. And if they say, well, you know what, yeah, I do want to have them, to do the test and meet with my team and then meet with the CIO, then you know what, well, it's my job to let you know that we may potentially miss out on that candidate, and will you want to gamble? And if they say yes, it's on them. But at least you set the expectation. Why the role is open, I think it's more for staffing agencies. Sometimes the role is open because the manager is really very difficult to work with. And not that you have to communicate it with the candidate, but I think that if you set the expectation with the candidate that, hey, you're going to be managed by somebody who has a really interesting personality and different approach, at least the candidates will have the expectation, even in the interview, that you will set the expectations with the candidates. I hope that makes sense for you guys. So next, we'll be communicating with the candidates and setting the expectations with the candidates. It's very similar, but again, since I do have a very limited time on calling candidates, I cannot stress enough, life happens, people have different things that happen with them. Some people go through, from our morning keynote speaker, we learned, somebody's going through cancer and other diseases and kids and, other stuff. But no matter what, when we pitch the job to the candidate, we have to keep it short, simple, and really engaging. So every single call that I have when I'm calling my candidates, I am excited about it. It's like, I use exactly the same pitch. Every time I call the candidate, I have written down, it's like, several sentences about my company, what we do, the industry, the size, the location. Then I talk about the team and the job. Obviously, the team and the job will be different, but the pitch about the company and the benefits all the time is the same pitch. So I know it by heart, and I stay engaged in every single conversation. So reason for leaving is the question, obviously aside from just screening a candidate on the skill set, a reason for leaving for me is the biggest point where not only that I can find red flags about the candidate, but this is the stuff, this is the hot buttons from the candidate that I can get and provide to the hiring manager. So for example, if the candidate is telling me, I really want to leave this position because I don't get any work-life balance here, and I have 2 kids, and I have to take them to school or whatever it is. I provide the details to the hiring manager. I don't just set up an interview. I set every single interview that I set up, I send in the calendar invite, I send the hot buttons to the hiring manager so that they talk about it, and the hiring manager would know that for this candidate, it's important, work-life balance is huge for them. So what do you need to do? You need to sell your job as well. So you need to talk about, hey, you can actually work from home 1 or 2 days per week here. But if I give the manager the hot buttons and let's say the reason for leaving of the candidate and the hiring manager uses it wisely, then the amount of candidates that we have targeted and those that we interview, that there is a higher probability that that candidate is going to be engaged because we will already let them know, hey, we can fix your problem. Compensation, reality, and reality versus expectation. Same thing as with the hiring manager. Some candidates have really unrealistic expectation of the salary. Some candidates don't, for some reason, don't want to give out what they're targeting. If they don't, I think that a good recruiter should get this type of information 100% of the time. But if for some reason the candidate is not giving out that information, provide them the range and say, will this be in your ballpark? And if it is not in the ballpark, you're not going to waste anybody's time. You're not going to bring the candidate through several rounds of interviews. The manager is going to be wasting their time. So everyone will have their expectations set. Timeline with the candidate, especially if your process sucks and your manager wants to interview 3 times and there will be a screening after that. Talk about it with the candidate. In the first conversation, say, hey, you know what? Our process is going to be over the phone and then on site, and then there will be a test, and then you may come back. So it may take about 2 weeks to go through the interviewing process, but at least you will set the expectation with the candidate. And when you call them for the 3rd round of interview or for them to complete the test, they're not going to be blindsided. And the last and my favorite one, and probably the least favorite of my manager, is the candidate search. I know for a fact that even when I was with a staffing agency, people, for some reason, recruiters don't like asking the question about candidates search. I love asking this question. This is the one. If the candidate is interviewing with other places, not that I'm asking them, hey, where are you interviewing? Tell me more about those companies. I'm not asking this for lead generation. But, hey, are there any finals or offers on the table that are time sensitive that we should be aware of? That one sentence can really, really eliminate a lot of trouble when you brought your candidate through several rounds of interviews and then they're off the market. So are there any finals or offers on the table that are time sensitive that we should be aware of? And usually people appreciate that question. I have been the job seeker, and when people were not asking, I was like, well, I actually do have another interview or final round, and if they would have asked me, I would have shared it, because maybe I would have I think it's important. I think it's important to ask this question to eliminate some of the frustration if the candidate goes off the market. So I think that's that in terms of expectations with the managers and candidates. So I'm ready to jump into the numbers and the numbers that I track. Guys, by no means it's not, I don't track anything advanced and something that I manage numbers tracking as a part of just doing everything else. So I track basic numbers, but it helps me tremendously when I'm choosing the sources, when I'm spreading or delegating what budget we should be spending. So it has helped me a whole lot, especially in the last year when I got a little bit better at it. And the sources that I use are usually free. So Excel, if you're not the best friend with Excel, there are courses for 1 or 2 hours on YouTube, as well as Google Analytics. Guys, I will show you some of the stuff that I do with Google Analytics. It's a free resource. It's really cool. You can track some data that for us was eye-opening. I will be happy to share with you, and I will be happy to share with you how to create a Google Analytics account. And another source that I use is just our internal ATS running the business intelligence reports with our ATS. If you don't know how to run a report with your ATS, there are usually learning centers that offer courses. Guys, if you invest, or if your company invests $300, usually it's approximately $300 to go through the course to be able to run the report through your ATS, is going to be a really awesome investment. All right, I run numbers on monthly basis and annually, and I'm going to show you, some of the things that I run on a regular basis. So the next one, actually, before I go into the next slide, I wanted to see, who in this room actually tracks any numbers at all. Awesome! Oh my gosh, it's pretty scary. You guys will be probably criticizing my presentation. So, from those of you who raised their hands, what tools are you guys using?
Excel.
So Excel.
ATS.
Who is using Google Analytics? Tiffany?
Back in the day.
Anyone? Cool. All right, that's exciting. That's something new for you guys to learn. All right. So if you're using Excel and probably you're reporting through the internal company, that's not going to be new because I will show you 2 slides that will be just from my internal ATS. Guys, why do we run numbers for total applicants versus those that were hired? So this slide shows the sources and how many people came from each source versus those that were hired. Yeah, we want to see, if we spend money with this specific source, do we track candidates? And then if we get applicants from this source, do we actually hire them, or do they just apply and we have a lot of traction, we have a lot of traffic of applicants, but at the same time we don't end up hiring these guys. They're not our hired pool. So I would say that if you track this data, not only on a monthly basis, but then if you run the report per year, it's really eye-opening. So for example, when I started with the association, they have been spending some really decent money on certain vendors, and I don't want to call names, but they were using some vendors that did get a lot of applicants to apply, but we did not hire anyone. So we used other sources, like Indeed was the free resource that got the most candidates, to apply and then be hired. So this one I run, to me, this one, the most helpful one, is to see the results and the trends annually. The next one, so the one that I track is days to fill. Okay, guys, I'm almost ashamed, but I did select this one, with 368 days to show you for the reason I track days to fill, not only to talk and set the expectations with the hiring managers, but I also want to set the expectations with my boss, right? And so, for example, regulatory associate role was open for longer than a year because the manager traveled and we put the role on hold 5 or 6 times. So it was open for longer than a year, and then when I ran the data annually, when I run the same report, this report is just per month. But when I run the same report internally for the entire year, and my numbers are skewed by 12 days instead of, let's say 28 days, it's now 38 or whatever, it's because of roles like this that are open for longer than a year that then skew my numbers. So go ahead.
Just a quick question. Are you doing business days or calendar days?
I do calendar days.
Calendar days,
Yeah.
okay. And then also, second question, are you manually plugging, especially the last slide, is that manually plugged in data or is that pulled from some system or ATS?
So ATS, and that's what I was talking about. It's a report that you generate. So you do pull, let's say you want to know the sources and then apply versus those that interviewed on site, phone interview, reviewed, and then total hires. So I request all this data from ATS. And when you start working with your ATS, like when somebody showed me how to do it in the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, I would never be able to run this report. It's super complicated, but once you go through just one course, guys, seriously, one course for like 1 hour, that's it. It's eye-opening, and then you don't have to go to your, technical team, or if you don't have anyone, you don't have to go and Google it or whatever. You just run it all the time yourself. Does that answer your question?
It does. And then I'm sorry, follow up just real quick. What ATS do you use?
We use AlterPro.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
All right, so this is it for ATS. The next one, and guys, this was probably the most creative slide that I have prepared. The light at the end of the tunnel. I was so proud of it. I was like, this is so cool. But no, seriously, guys, here's the thing with Google Analytics and numbers. So for me, it was more of a mental struggle. I knew everybody's talking about it. I went to several conferences. I went to Talent Connect last year, and everybody was talking about data and analytics and numbers. But no matter how much people were talking about it, I didn't really get to go to any session that would show you like where do you start? Like what are your basic first baby steps to start this game? And I was just scared. For several months, I was scared. And actually, I started using Google Analytics only in the beginning of this year. And that's when I contacted RecruitDC and I wanted to share with you my experience. So I'm new to it myself. But it's a really awesome tool. You guys, I am going to show just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much information that you can track with Google Analytics. It's unbelievable. I'm just going to show you, several things. It's really relevant to whatever questions you may have or the market that you recruit in. So, for example, let's see. So the basic one, right? Total traffic. This one shows you data for just 1 month. And I got the traffic that goes to our career page on monthly basis, 2,484 people. So if you guys remember from the previous slide, the applicants pool was 600 people. So what does this info show me? What does it tell me when I go to Google Analytics? People are not applying. Like, does it mean that my job ads suck and they don't look attractive and people are not interested? Like, they go on my career page, they read the job, but they don't apply? Or does it also mean that we have converted into a new software through, to AlterPro, and maybe the application is too long and they don't want to spend more than 4 minutes on applying? So I pulled this data the next month after our new software was converted. So I think that only data through several months will show me if it's just a common trend that I lost almost 2,000 applicants somewhere in between. But this data, if I track it on a monthly basis and if I see that there is a trend in several months, then we need to dig and see maybe there should be some changes in the application. Some questions maybe are not necessary, and we need to cut down on the amount of time that the candidate needs to spend on the application itself. Does that make sense? All right, so the next slide. All right, guys, seriously, this is it, and it's free data. It's something that anyone can definitely get to through Google Analytics. This is the sources where our candidates come from. So Google Analytics gives us the information and breaks it down. So the organic search, how many candidates come through the organic search, meaning from different search engines. from social sources, and that's sources like LinkedIn, referrals, so different job boards where the position is posted, as well as the direct candidates, those that come directly to your site. And on the left side column, it gives us the breakdown, how many people come from each source. That's on top of your ATS. So for those of you who don't know how to run the reports or don't have access to running the report, so let's say don't have a permission within your company to run a report, but if you can do it through Google Analytics, you get this data. So you get the data on how many people, what is the traffic that goes to your career page. Guys, this is one of my favorite, and actually I think Jeremy spoke about it. You see this, Google Analytics shows you what time of the day people go to your career page. And this one shows that for the most part, it's Monday through Friday, nobody really applies. People start applying right here on Sunday night because they probably thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go to work tomorrow. But for the most part, it's really Monday through Friday, and then on a hump day on Wednesdays, the most amount of applicants. This is the data from Google Analytics for several months. I have tracked a couple months of just entire traffic, and it's 27,000 applicants. Guys, Sunday and Saturday, like nobody applies for a job on Saturday, but people do go to at least our career page actively. Monday is the busiest one. That's when I post my jobs. So if I am to choose where I'm posting the job, I am posting it on a Monday. So, and this is the data that you can see for your company or your industry where your candidates go on your career site. Demographics. So guys, again, this is not something that maybe everyone will use, but for example, when I had to talk to my executives about the fact that we don't have I didn't have a RecruitDC, or we didn't have a jobs or career page on LinkedIn, and they were asking me, so why do we need it? Like, why do you need it? Why do we need to spend money on it? This is it. Like, this is the data that you can use. Google Analytics is showing you the demographics that go to your website. They track it. So the majority of our folks or traffic that came to our website were 25. All right, there you go. So the majority of people that came to our website were 25 to 34 years old. These are millennials. I just took this. I took this graph, this table. I went to my boss and I said, "We have millennials at our audience, and we have to have a LinkedIn career page. We have to have those mobile-friendly job ads in order to attract the millennials. This is our audience." And this was eye-opening, guys, because our career page it looked really cool on the computer, on the laptop, but we didn't really have any additional sources for candidates to review our job board from. So, for example, actually, let me jump in and talk more about it in the next slide, but this one shows candidate engagement. So it shows how many times several people go to your career page, sometimes several times, and you can see how much time they spend. So you can also see that some people just go to your career page and they just browse, but then you can see how many people actually click on what pages and how much time they spend on it. Again, not something that maybe everyone in this room can use, but it's interesting. Sometimes you want to look at this data, or for certain reasons. Now, this was the one that I was talking about in terms of if your career page is mobile friendly. When I ran the statistics on Google Analytics, and it showed us that almost half of our applicants go through mobile or tablet, and then I pulled up our career page on my phone, and I could not find the button to the career page. Like, I could not find anywhere on our website where our career page was. it was eye-opening. Nobody in marketing really knew about it. Nobody ever knew about it. So when we ran these numbers and we realized that half of our audience comes from mobile and tablet, we fixed it. So I worked with our marketing and our web content team. So they have created a career page that was mobile friendly. And now, boom, we have people that can definitely go and apply from their phone. All right, so this one, deep dive, if you are really into, doing more projects and running more numbers, you can do some cool and advanced stuff. For example, I ran this report just for a single source of Indeed that showed me for, I think, several months that how many people came, opportunity details. So right here, how many people went through Indeed to our career page, and then how many of them started registration on our website, how many people started the application after the registration, and then Google Analytics shows me how many people submitted their application. And guys, here's the thing, Google Analytics can also show you the through each source how many people were hired through the tons, through the funnel. So this is the funnel that you can run on every source that you utilize. And if you're spending money on certain sources, like you're spending money on certain job boards, this is an awesome tool to see if how many people you attract, they apply, and then how many people are hired. If you cannot do it through your ATS, that's another way to do it. So, and then now I am going to show you how to actually create the Google Analytics account. First of all, you have to have your own Google account. So you have to have your email address and password. And then you log in. When you log in, go to the browser and start typing in google.com/analytics/. It will take you to the next page that will give you the permission to sign up. So click sign up. And the next page that it will take you to will be this one-page application. Guys, this is really it. Like this is how you create your Google Analytics account. You fill out the information with your account name and then the website that you want to track. So your career page, you copy and paste the URL link in here, and then in the bottom of the page, you submit your application. When you submit your application, it takes you to the next page that will give you out a tracking ID right here. Save it somewhere safe, because that's your tracking ID that you would need to integrate in your ATS. So save the tracking ID. In terms of your ATS, guys, for the most part, most ATS systems today do integrate with Google Analytics. So if you right now don't have Google Analytics integrated with your ATS, it's probably because you don't know that it can be integrated, but it can. So you go to your ATS, and I'm going to show you the example with my ATS with Alter Pro. You go to settings, and then you select the integrations. Within the integrations, they will give you the drop-down list of things, of websites that you can integrate with, and Google Analytics is one of them. Then you paste your tracking ID number and activate the account. Or you may get an option of submit or on or save. This is it. You're integrated. So then once you complete this action and you go to your Google Analytics account, over time you will see the numbers that are being tracked. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Let's see. So this is us after we integrate with the Google Analytics account. And now I want to talk a little bit about recruitment branding. I know that there are a lot of different vendors that do provide really cool sources. But for somebody like myself with a limited budget, I have to step up my game myself. As my manager tells me, well, we need to utilize your MBA in marketing, so go ahead and create. Everything does start with the job description, guys. I want to show you an example of a bad job description. I'm not sure about you, but I probably will be fired if I posted this because it doesn't have the EO language anywhere. That's one thing. Speaking of EO, I am using eQuest. And guys, before I found out about does anybody in the room know about eQuest or utilize eQuest at all? No? So this is a really awesome, cheap, non-expensive tool. If you don't want to post, or if you don't want to bother, or if you have the EEO and AAP compliance that you have to follow when you're posting jobs. So certain recruiters have to go on different state job boards. They have to post their position with different journals in order not to be audited, or if you're audited, not to be in trouble. So eQuest covers you, and they guarantee that you will not fail the audit. And the cool thing about them is that they're not expensive, and you can go to their website and you can also pull the reports where they post jobs on what, veterans or minority websites. You can track the data where they post your positions. But sorry about deviating a little bit. EO language, eQuest. I think the good job description has to have a header right here, a little bit about the company and a little bit about the position, and also the benefits. Like this job just shows responsibilities and qualifications, nothing about the company or job or benefits. Why would the candidate go and apply for that? Sometimes they see the job descriptions that just are a big blurb, and some companies post them like big, well-known companies. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like have they seen what they have posted? It's just a blurb. I don't even want to read it. So I think that marketing and branding starts with that. That's job description is important. The next one is Glassdoor insights. Guys, different companies have different approach with Glassdoor, and some companies are against even considering the review, so they think that it's not important. I think it's important, especially if I run, if I get the insights from Glassdoor that show me that more than 1,000 people visited my page, but just a National Healthcare Association of 500 people, we got viewed on Glassdoor more than 1,000 times per month. That's like awesome data to see that we get traction. And I actually get calls from Glassdoor and they're telling me, oh, your company was viewed more than 1,000 times. Do you want to buy our product? And I'm saying, well, I'm using the free service that you guys provide, which is awesome. But basically, when I see the data that more than 1,000 people go to my page, all of done, I just created a page on Glassdoor for my company that didn't really exist. What I covered was, I wrote the overview. So what does your company do? What's your industry? How many people? What is the location? Just a quick, a couple paragraphs that people that go on Glassdoor can read about your company, as well as I did give a very descriptive information about our benefits. People that go on Glassdoor, I think this is why people go on Glassdoor. They want to see what kind of benefits companies offer. So I did provide a very descriptive language there. And I posted 9 pictures. You can post up to 10 for free on Glassdoor. Why not utilize this free source? It gives a story. Now when applicants go to your Glassdoor page, they actually see that, they see that some people that work there, some people actually happy and smile, and we do offer cool different activities. People participate in different events. Here you can see one of our conference rooms, so you can tell a story for free. Now, I would say that even for our company, it's definitely a long way to go in terms of submitting reviews or responding to the reviews, and that's another thing to accomplish. But for somebody who doesn't have anything, I definitely would recommend to start with this. And this is the information that you don't really have, again, for somebody who has limited time and limited resources, you don't really have to make up something different. You take that information and you go and create your career page. So take the same overview about what your company does, same information about the benefits, and same pictures of people that smile, and go to your career page or work with your marketing and say, hey, I have one pager. Can we go ahead and create it? It takes marketing with the web content team literally 20 minutes to go ahead and activate it. But it has to come. It has to come from someone. If there is no career page for the company that currently exists. So I use this information, I went and I built our career page, and now I actually don't have, sometimes I don't have to give a pitch about, or give a very descriptive pitch about our benefits, because people before even speaking with me, they said, oh, I already saw your benefits description on your career, so it works for me.
Thank you.
And then the same information, if you would use your data and say that you need the LinkedIn account, or if you already have a LinkedIn account, you can post it there as well. So since I manage our LinkedIn account and Brendan there, I took exactly the same information, same pictures, and posted it on our career page on LinkedIn. And I think this is really it. So thank you. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
We'll get a mic also and pass it around, but it's a small room, so if you can just vocalize.
How did you convince your company to purchase an ATS system?
You might need a mic. You might need a mic, yeah.
I think the question is how I have persuaded my company to use the ATS system.
To actually purchase an ATS. My battle right now is getting them to fork up the money to actually purchase one at all.
See, I didn't have that problem. We had the ATS system before I started, so I had to persuade to purchase, let's say, LinkedIn, or start the Glassdoor page. So I had to provide information on that. As for ATS, how do you track your candidates without the ATS system?
I'm using Excel, a spreadsheet I created. That's it right now.
Smart Recruiters has a free version for up to 10 jobs.
Cheap one. It's
Yep.
not the best, but CATS, C-A-T-S, it's really cheap. It's not the best thing, but it's something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you had mentioned, what was it? Sorry. Quest is your compliance?
eQuest.
Oh, eQuest. Okay, gotcha. Another one is Local Job Network, but Local Job Network is pretty expensive. When you say cheap, do you know price range of what you might have paid for that, or the company paid for that?
So it's approximately $3K for a year.
Oh, that's good. Okay, that's
Because,
way less.
yes, sometimes when you post a job with the journal, you have to pay $500 to $700 for just one posting, and you have to post regularly, at least once per quarter. And then on top of that, you do have to go to different state job boards, and then even though you do post there for free, but when you don't have time to every time go and go separately post on these state job boards, eQuest actually, and I'm sorry to hear that you have to go through Excel with tracking your candidates, but when you have even the primitive ATS, eQuest is partnering integrated with really almost any ATS system. So they do, and they scrape your jobs.
Okay.
You don't even have to go and post on eQuest. I think in the session before with sourcing, we were talking about that sometimes you have to go and post the job, and then it will be, scraped, or it will then go to other job boards. Here, you don't even have to post it separately. It's already integrated. Basically, you go to the account. It takes 2 minutes to just go ahead and create your account, and then copy and paste your information, integrate it just like you did the Google Analytics, and then all of your jobs go to eQuest automatically.
Thank you.
Veronika?
I don't know if you want cross-conversation. I was thinking about, you just made a great point about applicant tracking systems.
I'm pretty good at projecting, actually without a mic, but. So I didn't know if you wanted cross-conversation, but just to the person with the applicant tracking system, like you just mentioned something that's an advantage, and there's so many, I think a lot of employers don't realize you can get it for as cheap as, a lot of them $80 a month or $100 a month. So to realize that it's spinning out to social media, it's spinning out to other systems, that you have the access to data to see what's effective and how to spend your money better. You actually can go through the applicant tracking system for past candidates and find them more easily, using that and a range of other reasons to make the case that, and then it's probably deductible, so there's a lot of reasons to say versus a spreadsheet that there's an advantage spending $1,200 a year.
There are so many advantages, I agree. Unfortunately, I didn't go through the battle of, trying to get money approved for the ATS system, but I'm pretty sure just like for everything else that you can pull data and pull numbers from the web. Like, this one I was able to pull after I already had the ATS system. So I could pull the Google Analytics data, so it's easier. So when do you start from scratch? You probably go and Google. A lot of people talk about it. There are multiple articles. I would, in that case, I would just really recommend to take the numbers and data approach, prepare a presentation, and go to your executives and say, hey, this is, these are the numbers. So we need the ATS system. What is budget friendly? Because I agree, there are whether free or very budget friendly sources that people can use. Any other questions? What do you guys, think about creating the Google Analytics account? Do you feel like this was descriptive enough? Were you expecting something different?
So, real quick, I thought it was great. So, I like how
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Russell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps both HR tech firms and employers to get more clients or candidates through our consulting practice and online tools. So be sure to check out our sites like recruiting headlines, job fairing, and more to stay up to date on what's happening in recruiting. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.